The sweet scent of fresh roses and the soft chords of a string quartet filled the grand cathedral. Guests in elegant attire whispered in anticipation. Emma Stevens, dressed in a breathtaking lace gown, took a shaky breath and stepped forward on her father Robert's arm. This was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Just as the officiant prepared to begin the ceremony, the large wooden doors at the back of the church creaked open. In the doorway stood a woman Emma had never seen before, tears glistening in her eyes, flanked by 2 uniformed police officers. Her voice rang through the aisle, tremulous and determined. "That's my daughter. She was stolen from me at birth." Gasps rippled through the congregation, echoing off the vaulted ceiling. Emma's legs felt like they might buckle. Her father's grip on her arm tightened, as if he feared she might collapse. In that moment, the entire world seemed to freeze. Emma Stevens knew from a young age that she was adopted. Her parents, Robert and Diane Stevens, never made it a secret. They told her stories of how they'd waited for years, how they'd prayed for a child, how they felt indescribable joy the day they finally brought her home. Growing up in suburban Ohio, Emma had a childhood filled with kindness and care. The day she learned what adopted meant, she was only 6 years old. Diane knelt in front of her, holding her small hands, and said, "We didn't bring you into this world, sweet girl, but we promised to love you as fiercely as if we had." And they did. Emma remembered bike rides in the local park, spelling bee practice on the back porch, and summer vacations at a small lake cabin. She was the star in countless home videos, always giggling or chasing after the family dog. She grew up believing that love was all that truly mattered, not genetics. By high school, Emma had blossomed into a compassionate, bright young woman. She was the type of person who'd volunteer at animal shelters and tutor younger kids in math. Despite the typical teenage frustrations, she never doubted her parents' devotion. Occasionally, she wondered about her birth parents, but the curiosity was fleeting. She never felt incomplete. Then, in her junior year of college, Emma met Liam, a pre-law student with a calming smile. He was the first person who seemed to understand her quiet, introspective nature. She was drawn to his empathy. He volunteered at legal clinics and was a fierce advocate for justice. Their bond deepened quickly, and within months they were inseparable. Liam proposed during a winter getaway, on a frozen lake under the stars. He said yes. The wedding planning began in a whirlwind. Emma dreamed of a warm, intimate ceremony. She and Diane spent weeks choosing the perfect flowers, white lilies mixed with blush roses, symbolizing purity and new beginnings. Robert insisted on walking his daughter down the aisle. Everything felt right. Everything felt safe. On the morning of her wedding, Emma woke up filled with excitement. She had slept in her childhood bedroom, wanting to spend the last night before her marriage with her parents. Diane helped her into her gown, a stunning vintage-inspired dress with a train that swept gracefully behind her. They shared tender laughter when Diane fumbled with the buttons. Friends and family gathered at the cathedral. The interior glowed in golden light, courtesy of the towering stained glass windows. Rows of pews were adorned with flowers and ribbons. The air was thick with an almost magical anticipation. Emma felt butterflies in her stomach, a mixture of nervousness and joy. She could see Liam waiting at the altar, looking handsome and confident in his tailored suit, a reassuring smile on his face. The organ music soared, and Robert led Emma slowly down the aisle. She felt tears prick at her eyes, overwhelmed by love for the 2 men in her life. Her father, who had cherished her from the moment he held her as a baby, and her soon-to-be husband, who had promised to stand by her always. She reached Liam's side, heart pounding. The officiant welcomed everyone about to begin. But before the first words were spoken, the echo of the heavy front doors swinging open made every head turn. A woman mid to late 40s, her hair disheveled with strands of silver, stepped inside with tears on her cheeks. 2 police officers flanked her, their expressions serious. In a strained voice, the woman declared, "That's my daughter. She was stolen from me at birth." Pandemonium ensued. As soon as the woman pointed at Emma, the officers approached carefully. One raised a hand, signaling the officiant to pause. Liam, shocked, positioned himself in front of Emma protectively. Diane rushed forward, confusion etched across her face. Robert's mouth hung open, speechless. The lead officer, a woman named Detective Melissa Grant, spoke with a calm authority. "Is your name Emma Stevens?" she asked gently. Emma nodded, her breath unsteady. "Yes, that's me. What's going on?" Detective Grant looked from Emma to the sobbing woman. "We need you to come with us for questioning. We have evidence suggesting you may be Ava Reynolds, a child who was abducted from St. Mary's Hospital 26 years ago." A wave of astonished murmurs washed over the guests. Emma's vision blurred. She felt Liam's arm around her, but the floor seemed to tilt. "This is a mistake," Diane cried out. "We have legal adoption papers. She's our daughter." The woman who had spoken shook her head, tears dripping onto her blouse. "I'm her mother, Clara Reynolds. My baby was stolen. Please let me explain." The entire gathering was paralyzed, uncertain how to react. Emma felt as though she had tumbled into some bizarre nightmare. Within minutes, the wedding was in shambles. The organ music had stopped. Guests whispered and pointed, phone cameras capturing every moment. Some tried to approach Emma, but the officers gently kept everyone at bay. Clara Reynolds sobbed, repeatedly asking to hug her daughter, but the police maintained a professional distance. Robert and Diane desperately tried to speak with the officers, brandishing the adoption papers they'd brought for sentimental reasons. The officiant, at a loss, set down his book, baffled at the unfolding drama. A swirl of questions burst into Emma's mind. Could this be real? Was she actually kidnapped? Had her entire life been a lie? Her chest tightened with panic. Liam squeezed her hand, guiding her gently toward the side aisle away from the stunned guests. Detective Grant followed, explaining in hushed tones that they had a warrant to take Emma for official questioning. "Give us a moment," Diane pleaded, tears in her eyes. "She's in shock." Detective Grant nodded. "We understand, ma'am. But we have to follow procedure." Clara, standing a few steps away, looked torn between heartbreak and determination. Her hands twitched at her sides, as if she didn't know whether to reach out or hold back. Emma was escorted to a waiting police car, still in her wedding dress. A hush fell over the entire congregation. The last thing Emma saw before they shut the car door was Liam's anguished face, and behind him, both sets of parents staring at each other across a chasm of confusion. At the station, Detective Grant led Emma to a private room, offering her water and a chance to call family. Emma refused both, too numb to function. Tears streaked her makeup. Her elegant wedding gown felt suffocating in the sterile environment. Grant opened a file on the table. Inside were old photographs, hospital records, and forms. "You might want to sit," the detective said softly. Over the next hour, Emma learned a staggering tale. In 1998, an infant named Ava Reynolds disappeared from St. Mary's Hospital just 2 days after birth. The mother, Clara Reynolds, had stepped out briefly, and upon returning found her baby gone. A nurse claimed to have seen a suspicious woman in scrubs leaving the ward with a bundled infant. Hospital security was inadequate, and the woman disappeared without a trace. The case went cold. Clara never stopped searching. Over the next 2 decades, she tried every lead: private investigators, missing child registries, even psychic hotlines. Nothing panned out. Then, a year ago, Clara submitted her DNA to an ancestry website. The algorithm flagged a close familial match to someone named Emma Stevens. Over time, local authorities launched a quiet investigation to confirm. DNA from Emma's discarded coffee cup matched the sample from Clara. That sealed it. Emma's blood turned to ice. "But I was adopted." Grant nodded. "Your adoptive parents likely believed it was legal. The evidence suggests a black market adoption ring. People forging paperwork, preying on unsuspecting couples desperate for a child." Emma's mind reeled with questions, but one rose above the rest. If all this was true, then who was she really? Diane and Robert arrived at the station 2 hours later, their faces etched with worry. Emma waited for them in an interview room, her gown hiked up awkwardly, hair disheveled. They looked older and more fragile than Emma had ever seen. "Sweetheart," Diane choked out, rushing to embrace her. "We didn't know." Robert's eyes were red-rimmed. "We were told you came from a mother who couldn't keep you. We believed we were giving you a better life." Emma felt conflicting tides of anger, sorrow, and love. She wanted to blame them, but the desperation in their voices seemed genuine. Had they truly been deceived? "Didn't you question the strange documents? The hospital record?" Emma asked, tears streaming. "We tried to," Robert said quietly. "We hired a lawyer who said everything was above board. We never imagined something so terrible could happen. The agency vanished soon after the adoption was finalized. We assumed they'd changed locations." They begged Emma to believe them. She wanted to. Her entire childhood felt like proof that their love was real. But doubt gnawed at her. Clara Reynolds waited in a nearby office, racked with anxiety. When Detective Grant asked Emma if she would speak to her birth mother, Emma hesitated but ultimately agreed. Curiosity, fear, and a strange pull compelled her to go. Entering the room, Emma saw a woman whose face mirrored her own in subtle ways. Similar cheekbones, the same flecks of gold in the eyes, the same shape of nose. Clara stood and immediately reached out, then paused, unsure if physical contact was allowed or wanted. Tears pooled in Clara's eyes. "I never thought I'd see you again," she whispered. "They told me to give up, but I kept searching. You were so small. You had the softest dark hair. I called you my little night owl, because you'd only sleep when the moon was out." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She found herself longing to know more, yearning for a connection she never realized she missed. "They said your name is Ava?" Emma asked quietly. Clara nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Yes, Ava Marie Reynolds." Emma closed her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice trembling. "I don't remember any of it." Clara approached slowly. Tentatively, Emma let the woman embrace her. The hug felt both foreign and heartbreakingly natural. "It's okay," Clara whispered. "We have time." Emma wasn't so sure. Her life had just been shattered into a million pieces. News of the dramatic wedding interruption exploded across local and national outlets. "Bride revealed as stolen infant," headlines blared. Cameras swarmed the police station, the church, and the Stevens home. Reporters speculated. Were the adoptive parents criminals or innocent victims? Would Emma sue them? Would she prosecute the black market brokers still at large? Emma, physically and emotionally drained, was placed in protective custody temporarily, to shield her from the paparazzi. She retreated to a small motel with an undercover officer posted outside. Liam visited daily, sneaking in through a back entrance. "We'll get through this," he told her, stroking her hair gently. "I love you. No matter who you are, Emma or Ava, you're still you." Emma clung to him, half convinced she was in some endless nightmare. She missed her parents, both sets of them. She wasn't even sure how to label them anymore. She wanted answers. She wanted normalcy. Detective Grant discovered a horrifying paper trail that implicated a disgraced nurse who once worked at St. Mary's Hospital. The nurse had previously been fired for suspicious activity. Evidence pointed to her orchestrating illegal adoptions for profit. Diane and Robert had unwittingly been her clients. They had paid a large agency fee, never suspecting it was anything other than standard adoption procedure. Court records showed that after delivering Emma to her new parents, the nurse vanished. Clara had spent the better part of her life combing through every clue. She lost jobs, friends, and even her marriage in the obsessive hunt for her missing child. But she never stopped believing. She posted flyers across the country, started websites, lobbied for changes to hospital security laws, and wrote letters to every major talk show. Nearly 3 decades passed with no breakthrough. Then the DNA test changed everything. Emma was torn between two lives. In one life she was Emma Stevens, beloved daughter of Robert and Diane, fiancée to Liam, a college graduate with a teaching license. The girl who played soccer in middle school, volunteered with the school choir, and spent every Christmas making gingerbread houses with her family. In another life she was Ava Reynolds, a missing child. A baby stolen from a hospital, whose birth mother spent decades in heartbreak and loss. For weeks, Emma wrestled with guilt, anger, and confusion. Counselors offered help. She cried with Liam, who held her hand and promised her that the wedding could wait as long as she needed. Her adoptive parents pleaded for forgiveness, though they insisted they had been deceived. Her birth mother reached out constantly, afraid to lose her daughter again. The demands on Emma's emotional energy were overwhelming. Finally, Emma took a step back. She asked for space from all parents, adoptive and birth alike. She retreated to a quiet cabin Liam's family owned, where she spent days journaling. She wrote letters to herself, to her birth mother, to her adoptive parents. She wrote about the fear, the betrayal, and the unconditional love she had experienced. One night she went outside, gazing up at a sky ablaze with stars. She realized she didn't have to erase one set of parents to accept the other. Her heart was big enough to hold both truths. She could be Emma and Ava. A month after the wedding fiasco, Emma finally agreed to see Clara again, this time in a calmer setting. They met at a small lakeside restaurant, chosen deliberately for its quiet atmosphere. Clara arrived with a worn baby album and a soft, knitted blanket. She placed them on the table, hands trembling. "Your grandmother made this," she said, smoothing the blanket with care. "We wrapped you in it the day you were born." Emma gently ran her fingers over the faded threads. She glanced at the baby album, filled with pictures of a beaming Clara holding a newborn. It felt surreal to see a younger version of the woman she'd only recently met. "Do you want to know about your father?" Clara asked, her voice fragile. "We divorced a few years after you were taken. The grief, it tore us apart. But he still loves you." "We both do." Emma nodded, tears glistening. "Yes, but let's go slow. I can't absorb it all at once." Clara reached across the table, hesitating a moment before letting her hand rest over Emma's. "Of course. We have all the time in the world now." It didn't take long for attorneys to circle. Clara wanted justice for the kidnapping, though she didn't blame Emma's adoptive parents. Instead, she sued the defunct hospital administration and any affiliates of the nurses' adoption ring. Robert and Diane cooperated fully, wanting to clear Emma's name and theirs. They even offered to help Clara financially. A state investigation into illegal adoptions began, uncovering multiple cases where unsuspecting couples had been tricked or manipulated. For Emma, each new revelation brought both relief and heartbreak. She was relieved to see the criminals might face punishment, but she mourned for the stolen years and for the heartbreak inflicted on Clara. She testified in court dressed simply, her wedding gown exchanged for a somber black suit. The media still called her the stolen bride, sensationalizing every detail. But Emma was done hiding. She spoke about her love for both sets of parents, about how adoption could be a beautiful thing when done ethically, and how monstrous it was when driven by greed. In time, Emma found a fragile balance between the two families. Clara began visiting the Stevens home for dinners. It was awkward at first, with stilted conversation and subdued tension. Diane apologized countless times, tears streaming down her cheeks, while Clara struggled to quell her own bitterness. Yet slowly, they bonded over their shared love for Emma. They swapped stories. Diane reminiscing about Emma's first day of kindergarten, Clara talking about how she used to sing lullabies to her belly. Though they could never fully erase the pain of the past, they found common ground in wanting Emma's happiness. Emma realized that forgiveness wasn't an instantaneous event. It was a journey. Each day, she chose to forgive in small ways, letting go of anger, listening to Clara's stories, reassuring Robert and Diane that she still loved them. A year later, Emma and Liam finally set a new wedding date. This time, they chose a peaceful garden by a lake rather than a grand cathedral. The event was smaller, more intimate. No more dramatic entrances, no more paparazzi. Clara was there, tears shining in her eyes, seated beside Diane and Robert. Liam's parents, who had supported the couple through the ordeal, welcomed Clara wholeheartedly. The ceremony was short but poignant. Underneath an arch of blooming flowers, Emma, now legally recognized as both Emma Stevens and Ava Reynolds, walked down the aisle on the arms of the father who raised her and the father she'd only recently met. When the officiant asked, "Who gives this woman to be married?" all four parents, Robert, Diane, Clara, and Emma's birth father, quietly in attendance after reconciling with Clara, answered together, "We do." Tears, laughter, and applause followed. The sun shone brilliantly, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of garden blossoms. Emma felt whole, standing before Liam, finally free of secrets and confusion. "You look breathtaking," Liam said, taking her hands. "I love you, Emma. And Ava. Every side of you." Emma smiled through tears. "I love you too." They exchanged vows, promising honesty, faithfulness, and support in whatever challenges lay ahead. As they were pronounced husband and wife, the guests erupted in cheers, a mix of relief and jubilation. The newlyweds shared a kiss that seemed to symbolize not just their union, but Emma's reclamation of her life's narrative. In the months following the wedding, Emma began speaking publicly about ethical adoption. She worked with organizations dedicated to reuniting families torn apart by illegal practices. She often stood side by side with Clara, who turned her own heartbreak into advocacy for stronger hospital security protocols and better oversight of private adoption agencies. Robert and Diane remained an integral part of Emma's life, taking on the role of bonus grandparents when Emma eventually had children. They lovingly embraced the new family dynamic, and though the scars ran deep, love, patience, and mutual respect allowed them all to move forward. Emma reflected often on the collision of two worlds that day at the cathedral, the bride stepping forward to meet her groom, and the mother appearing with the police. She realized life doesn't always have neat edges. Sometimes it's messy, heartbreaking, and miraculous all at once. But from that chaos, Emma discovered a truth that set her free. Her identity wasn't a single story. She was a daughter to more than one mother, cherished by multiple families, and shaped by experiences both beautiful and tragic. Rather than fear that complexity, she chose to celebrate it. "Love is infinite," she would say at speaking engagements, her voice resonating with conviction. "We can open our hearts to make room for the people who come into our lives, even if it happens under the darkest circumstances. That's what it means to be a family, finding light together, even when the darkness fights to keep us apart." Years later, Emma would look back on the day her wedding was interrupted, remembering how her entire reality crumbled in front of hundreds of guests. But she also recalled the extraordinary strength she discovered in the aftermath. In her home, perched on a fireplace mantel, stood a framed photo from her second wedding ceremony. Emma, Liam, and all four parents smiled under an arch of flowers, the lake glimmering in the background. It wasn't a perfect picture. Tears shone on cheeks, red eyes hinted at recent crying, but it was real. It was a symbol of everything they had overcome. Emma knew that people often asked themselves, "Who am I?" She had lived that question in the most literal, life-altering way. Her answer after everything was simple. "I'm Emma. Maeva. I'm a daughter, a wife, an advocate, and a friend. My past is complicated, but my future is filled with love." And in that realization, she found the peace she had been searching for. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. If you found this story captivating, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another powerful narrative. We appreciate your support, and we look forward to sharing more inspiring and suspenseful stories with you soon.